right, welcome back to F1 Casuals. I'm here with Greg. Greg, how are things over there on the West Coast?
Things are pretty good over here. Memorial Day weekend, so spent a lot of time outdoors with the dog and the girlfriend. But looking forward to talking about the Monaco Grand Prix with you, Mark.
There you go. Right, it is a holiday. We're recording this on Monday, the day after the race, and it is a holiday for all of you you Yanks out there. I hope you're enjoying your long weekend, drinking lots of Bud Light, Coors Light, Miller Light, all those light beers you guys love so much down there. I'm just kidding. There's a big craft brewery movement down there.
There is, but what can I say? It doesn't hold a candle to that fresh stuff you got in your hand there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I got so excited. I cracked this one before we even started recording. But yes, Boxing Rock still sponsoring the F1 Casuals, still providing B&V with that cold, refreshing beer. This is an Arnold's Apricot Wheat. I don't know who Arnold is, and it doesn't say on the can, but it's tasty. I'm not a big wheat beer drinker myself, Greg, but I find this one doesn't have too much of a weedy aftertaste. So,
Get her into ya.
down the hatch, it was a beautiful weekend in Halifax this past 2 days. Unfortunately, we're dealing with some very serious fires, some forest fires that are still being battled. It's windy today, so it's a little bit worrisome. Over 14,000 people evacuated. So we're hoping everyone is out safe. There's been no fatalities, which is good. A lot of destroyed homes, which is really sad. But yeah, we'll keep you updated. Hopefully, this will be over within the next little while. We've got some Newfoundland firefighters and the water bombers coming in, and hopefully that can make a big difference. But we're here to talk about the Monaco GP. It is 1/3 of the Triple Crown, like I said last week. Greg, it's on your bucket list. Is it your number one?
It is my number one sporting event bucket list. I will get to a Monaco Grand Prix one of these days, but I don't know if it's the glitz and the glam or just the mystique of the event and it being one of the oldest events on the circuit. Yeah, it's number one for me in all sports, and I'm a hockey guy, so
In
that's
all
it.
of sports. Wow, I thought it was just motorsport. That's impressive. It is quite the spectacle. I mean, it used to be, the only real spectacle in F1 before Miami and Vegas tried to come in and steal their spot. But no, it's always going to be Monaco. Some argue that it's not even worth racing. I mean, you might as well just do qualifying, and that's it. I think this race proved otherwise, especially towards the end. I mean, you add a little bit of wet weather into any race, and you're going to get craziness. But we did have a fantastic qualifying. We're going to get into it shortly, but no, Monaco is it's got to stay on the calendar.
100%. I mean, the history is one thing, but I think, yeah, like you say, with the weather, Monaco is a track that's particularly interesting when there is inclement weather because of the fine margins, the tight corners. There's not much opportunity for overtaking, period. And then when the track gets a little slick, anything can happen. And we kind of got a little bit of that late in the race, which we'll get to. But yeah,
We
interesting
sure
weekend.
we sure did. I will say one thing. I know we're trying to make racing better with those cars. I know safety comes first, obviously, but those cars are so big. Like I saw a
They're too big.
picture, they're too big. I saw a picture earlier today, and it was the chicane where the slowest turn in Monaco, like where it's kind of the roundabout turn. I forget what it's called. We need Mikey here for was it Rascass? I don't even know. I know the first turn's called Zandvoort. I thought that was the Dutch track. I don't even know what's happening here, but they're too big, and they showed a picture of a side by side of all of the F1 cars making that turn, like on the first lap, so they're all piled. And the Formula E cars doing the same thing. They're probably 2/3 the size, which means it can happen. Obviously, an engine and an electric engine, a gas engine and electric engine. There's a bit different going on there, and I understand that, but I think we need to make it, a little bit shorter on the length. Let's look forward. Maybe the 2026 regulations. That's got to be the focal point. Doesn't matter. I'm talking too much about the length of the cars. We got to get into qualifying. And it was a dry qualifying, but that didn't stop Checo from slamming his back end in qualifying in Q1. He set a time that may have gotten him into Q2, ended up not, and he was out P20 to start the race. And I kind of said this last week after the Miami GP. Max just showed that he is far and away the best on the grid with that vehicle, that spaceship, and now with Checo not even getting out of Q1, it's not looking good. I don't think the title fight is on anymore. I think it's pretty much over at this point.
Yeah, his post-race comments, Checo that is, were kind of interesting in light of everything that happened for him on the weekend. I don't think he's going to be. I mean, we've seen what Max has.
What did he say? I didn't see that.
He just said how it was disappointing for his own title hopes, and I think the fact that he's even talking about that is a little unrealistic to say the least. And that's not even including, the kind of the trajectory that Yuki Tsunoda is on right now with AlphaTauri. A moment for Yuki's driving of late. Like, he's been on fire, proving himself, and probably pretty hot on Checo's heels, I think, for next season for that second seat at Red Bull.
Big time. I mean, you talk about Nick DeVries on the other end of that AlphaTauri team, and yeah, he's been a bit disappointing. Mind you, he did have a better weekend in Monaco, but on the other side, you've got Yuki, who's only getting better and better. And you remember a couple years ago when he came into that AlphaTauri team, there was a little bit of speculation around his experience, his age, and yeah, there were some growing pains, and even the beginning of this year, a little bit of growing pains. But my God, he has found that limit, found the confidence to bring what I continue to say a shitbox across that finish line, usually in the points. So huge shout out to Yuki. Well, such a lovable guy. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that dislikes Yuki. So it'd be exciting to see him in that second Red Bull seat, maybe in a few years. I think it's inevitable at this point. And it'd be super exciting to see how Max and Yuki's relationship grows as teammates.
That's two massive personalities, but they're not the only ones that have taken note of Yuki's success and his potential. I think it was the CEO of Honda actually last week that said, and this was after on the heels of news about Aston Martin and Honda's partnership. But Honda's CEO saying he'd like to see Yuki in an Aston Martin seat eventually. Just obviously,
and we will get to
so.
Right on, yeah, and that's actually one of our headlines we'll get to in the sprint to the finish line later on. Some big partnership announcements with Honda and Aston Martin. Well, I pretty much gave it away there, but whatever. We'll address it a bit more once we're done with the race.
Did you also notice when you speak of Yuki's confidence too? I think one thing that really stood out for me during the GP was, I think it was like lap 66, Yuki's radio, just complaining about the pace of the car. He was like, "This pace sucks. You're trying to crash me."
That was I actually wrote that down as a note to talk about. He literally accused his team of trying to crash him because I think they wanted him to change the brake settings, and he did actually run into a bit of bad luck towards the end of the race, which was unfortunate through no fault of his own. Once again, that AlphaTauri car is a disappointment. I said it last week. That doesn't get addressed enough, considering they are the official, unofficial Red Bull feeder team. You'd think they'd have. I mean, you'd think Adrian Newey would pop over a couple times and be like, "Actually, you should go this direction instead of the other direction." But I mean, fair enough. But no, bright future for Yuki. Excited for him. He ended up in 9th in qualifying, he was at the top. I think at the beginning of Q3 or it was the beginning of Q2. He set top times like halfway through the qualifying session. So he's right there. I mean, he put him in one of those cars in the top, and who knows what he'll do. All right, so Lance, once again, disappointing. And listen, we're not here to rag. If we got in that car, it would be an absolute disaster. But at the end of the day, we've self-appointed ourselves as critics of the sport and the drivers in it. And Lance is going to cost Aston Martin places in the championship. Mercedes is only 1 point behind now, and he went out again in Q2. I was like literally typing up like, "Lance, oh, what again? Terrible." Apparently, it was a floor issue. He ran over some debris. He wasn't able to get out there for a second time in Q2 to put together something better. But at the same time, didn't put together something at the beginning of the qualifying session. I mean, what are your thoughts? I want to bring this up on a later episode, and if this trend continues with Lance, I will. So Mike can add his opinion on this. But at what point does Lawrence say, All right, Lance. It's been fun. Daddy's got to take those keys away from you.
I don't know. Like, I think obviously he gets the runway of this season. There's no question about that. Likely beyond that, I think, if I was betting on it. But I mean, he is a businessman and he's a pretty ruthless businessman. If you have, if you watch Drive to Survive, he's definitely gives off that aura, that vibe. So I'd say his patience is probably somewhat limited, despite it being a family issue. But he's going to want to win, and I think that's why he's invested in the sport, why
Yeah,
he partakes in it, and why he's so visible. He wants to win, and you can only go so far with Fernando carrying the water.
exactly. I mean, he wants championships. You talk about that partnership that we'll get into a bit more later with Honda, but he's making the moves necessary to put that car at the top of the grid for years to come. And you look at Fernando, who's in his 40s, obviously, the magical man. He's
Our boy.
unstoppable, our boy. But he is older, and he's putting that car on the podium now 5 out of 6 races, and Lance not getting in a Q2, not finishing in the points multiple races this year. And I think, maybe they didn't expect the Aston Martin car to be so great, to have so much success so early on in this, this takeover since they were Racing Point. So I think I think that really does put the pressure on Lance. I think maybe Lawrence saw this as more of a 3, 4, 5 year plan before those really tough decisions about Lance and his seat were going to come into play. But I think they're in play now. I think even after the summer, the silly season, I don't know if it'll be talked about then, but I think definitely this next off season before the 2024 calendar
For sure.
year, there's going to be chatter.
100%. And yeah, I think you've made a pretty good point there about maybe the timeline for success is a little bit accelerated. And that's clear every time you listen to Fernando talking, praising the team about, the great job they put in week in, week out. But I think in Monaco this weekend, he said something like, "This is magic, guys. It's magic." Like,
Right?
he's obviously enjoying his time there. And yeah, they are a competitive team. They're, fighting for second place in this championship, the constructors championship. So
You
it's
know,
exciting.
Right? And it's reliable too. I mean, no one's been more consistent than Fernando, not even Max. Like it's impressive and yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We love he's Canadian, obviously. We don't, like I said, we don't want to rag on him too much, but at the end of the day, I think Lawrence wants those championships more than he wants a non-awkward family dinner. So we're gonna find out soon enough. So we get into Q3, and that's really where the excitement started. I think it was a bit of a tame qualifying, similar to the most of the race, but we'll get to that. But towards the end of qualifying, we had Esteban Ocon put that car in pole position with not very much time left, and it went purple sectors towards the end of Q3. I didn't see this coming at all. I don't know if anyone I know all year Alpine the Alpine boss has been talking about how disappointing the season's been so far, how Otmar himself is on the hot seat, how you've had, Pierre not getting that results that he got in the AlphaTauri throughout the years. And then Ocon out of nowhere, who's no slouch himself. He does have, this was his well, he had a podium, folks. Sorry, spoil, but this is his third podium. So he's been there before, but I did not see that coming
No,
whatsoever.
he came off the top rope. That was wild. I mean, like you say, it was a fairly tame qualifying until Q3. But yeah, you saw some pretty immense laps getting put in late, making it extremely exciting, and then kind of just throwing the grid order, to the wind. Anything could have happened there. Because yeah, Esteban Ocon in a pole position, Fernando putting in an insane lap, only to be pipped by Max, who put in. I think we can safely call this one a god tier lap
That
to secure pole.
That was insane. I mean, and one of our favorite terms, track evolution. That's what we were seeing towards the end of qualifying. Once it was kind of, the last person, last man up, whoever's getting that time in is most likely going to end up in pole position. But still, Fernando put in purple, purple, purple. And it was like, oh my good God, is Fernando going to be starting from the front? We know how he defends. He's not going to give that up. Maybe that Fernando win is coming even earlier. And I'm giving a shout out to my buddy Christo, who does not believe in our boy, who thinks he's washed up and overrated. Well,
What is he
guess
watching?
I don't know what you're watching, Christo. I'll tell you right now. Spain's next week. They got a new chicane. And the last time that chicane was there, Fernando won. So you better watch out. That win is coming.
So
Pole we thought was coming. It didn't because, like you said, Max put in the most insane. I mean, actually, you know what? It wasn't even the most insane lap. It was the most insane sector 3 ever.
yeah,
Like he was down 200s with only that final sector where you really can't make up much. And I'm pretty sure he smacked one or two walls. And I shouldn't say smacked. I mean he tapped. He touched.
yeah.
There was some markage afterwards, but he was on the absolute limit. Fines just over 200ths of a second in that final sector and snatches pole away from Fernando. I think at that point we were like, oh well, yeah. I mean, he's on another level and he's going to win the race, barring some craziness, which kind of did happen. But I mean, hats off to him. You can't really say anything other than he continues to deliver, and he's been delivering since he won that first championship a couple of years ago.
He was phenomenal. Have to say it. But yeah, I think like you, I was thinking that could be the end of the weekend, given that it's Monaco, difficult to overtake. Obviously disappointed that Fernando didn't get the pole because I think that would have given him a really good shot with his pace and his confidence and his level at the moment to actually secure that win that he needs so badly. But yeah, it's set up for a pretty good Sunday. And the great equalizer was a threat. And as soon as we found out that the forecast was calling for a little bit of rain at an unpredictable point in the GP, I got excited again.
Oh, very excited. And I'll tell you what, before we get into the race, we do have to address something that has become, unfortunately, all too common at Monaco. It is the Chucky Leclerc curse.
Oh my God, this poor bastard.
We thought maybe it wasn't going to happen this year. P3, respectable. He was actually on pole for a hot sec before Fernando got in there. But P3, the car's still intact. And I believe Sergio won from P3 last year. So there was like, all right, maybe Charles can do it. And then word gets out. It looks like Charles might have impeded Lando in the tunnel. And they show the replay, and it's like, oh, yeah, that actually might have been the case. Stewards were looking at it, and he ends up with a 3-place grid penalty down to P6, and that pretty much takes away any chance of you winning Monaco. I think we've talked about this on episodes past, years past. P3 is pretty much the limit on where you can win from Monaco. So it wasn't going to happen. Very unfortunate. He did end up finishing the race, and that's actually the first time he's finished a race at Monaco. So I don't know. I feel bad. It just seems like it's not even just Monaco. Like, he's just one of the unluckiest guys.
100%. Monaco's definitely, you can tell it weighs on him. He wants to win that one so bad. His hometown GP. And he even had on a really slick set of threads too. The jumpsuit he was wearing was kind of a Monaco flag themed
Right?
Ferrari suit. Looking sharp, probably expecting a better result than he ended up with. But kind of nice to see the Ferraris with a little bit of pace, though. That was something to feel positive about and take away from the race for both of them, him and Carlos. But
Yeah, absolutely. I was honestly we didn't do our podium picks, but I honestly I was thinking about maybe Charles, maybe Carlos taking that victory because I had a feeling the Ferraris were gonna have pace at Monaco. It's all about qualifying at Monaco. And the pace was there, but everyone else showed that they've got pace too, including Ocon, which is just I still can't get over. But let's get into the race, and if we're honest, it was pretty boring for the first 50-ish laps, but we knew rain was a possibility. We knew it was on the horizon. And how about that F1 TV direction? First year getting some incredible overhead shots and actually some incredible underbelly shots too of the Red Bull and the Mercedes, but also a really cool pan up into the mountains, and it was dark clouds. And it was like, okay, that rain is definitely coming.
and you get a sense of how tight everything is there in the center of the town. Like it is a unique track, obviously steeped in history and tradition, but yeah, the direction has just gone to another planet this season, and Monaco was a perfect showcase of that. Like you say, like some of those angles were phenomenal. it's the first time that you're watching a race, you get a real appreciation for the level of production that goes into it.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. That was actually one of my favorite parts of the race was those overhead views, seeing Monaco in all its glory. Can't wait till we can go eventually. Maybe we'll go sit at the casino or in one of the many pools that are around the track.
Or paying like, what is it, 200K for a spot on a yacht, or that's what they pay to actually dock. It's
Really?
like 7,000 pounds or euros. Yeah, of
Now that's a docking fee. Yeah, maybe Lawrence will let us on the yacht next year.
course.
Maybe not after all this bashing of his
Oh
son, but
yeah.
hey, it's all in jest. But no, it was really cool to watch with F1 in charge. I think Monaco direction after the memes they created with switching to Lance when probably the only pass of the day happened with Vettel over, I think it was Gasly last year or the year before. So F1 was like, you know what, we're taking it over. And they did a great job. Some really cool angles, some great direction. I don't think we really missed anything in terms of action. But speaking of action, we get to around lap 50, 51, 52, and the rain starts coming. And what's so interesting about what happened at Monaco and it's happened at other races is you have isolated areas of the track that are getting quite wet and other areas that almost aren't wet at all. And it kind of becomes a guessing game at that point.
Rolling the dice big time. Like, are you going on intermediates? You're going full wets. What are you going to do about tire strategy there? Because you don't know how long it's going to last. And yeah, as you said, this was a really good example of one part of the track getting absolutely pelted by rain while the rest was dry. So it was really fascinating at that stage.
So up until I think it was lap 54, 55, you had a lot of the cars literally inching themselves through parts of these sections. And I mean, I was watching by myself, but it became pretty clear that intermediates was the call. I mean, initially I was like, put on the wets. What's going on here? Like, I can see puddles. But like we said, Greg, part of the track once, I mean, eventually the whole track was wet, but wasn't too bad in some parts. And as the cars go through, dries it up. But I was like, it's definitely intermediates. That's the call. 3 of the top 6 put intermediates on. Fernando is heading into the pits. Max stays out on very old mediums. Once again, by the way, quick shout out to Max for just running those mediums for 50 plus laps and still staying in first by a really good margin. Like, he continues to be a master of tire management.
Yeah, and with serious degradation too. Like they were pretty grained and starting to grain fairly early, it looked like. But team and driver had confidence to see it out. So credit to them.
Credit to them. But not coming in at that point for Max wasn't the right call. And the door opened for Fernando for just a second. And then all of a sudden you hear Crofty, no, Fernando's staying on slicks. Like he's going on mediums. Like, what? What? Why? Like we can see the other cars, the other camera angles that are still on mediums, and I know they're a lot older, but it didn't matter at that point. Whatever slicks you had on, you were sliding around, and whatever kind of time you were going to make up in the dry parts, you were going to lose. It reminds me of Lando when he was so close to victory. What was it last year? Oh, I don't even want to think about that. That was terrible. But switches to slicks or remains on slicks, but a new pair, and immediately after that lap realizes that he needs intermediates and has to pit immediately again. And still in second, and maybe only 21, 22 seconds behind Max after pitting again. So I'm thinking to myself, oh man, like it was going to be really close if he made the right call.
Yeah.
He had a shot. It is too bad. We really wanted Fernando to get that victory. I mean, we always want Fernando to get that victory. But Red Bull got away with it. Max switched in the intermediates after that lap that he was. I think he actually lost the lap before he switched to the intermediates, like 7 seconds to Fernando. So it was happening, and then Fernando had to pit, and that was the end of that. And then it pretty much just became bumper cars for the rest of the field.
Yeah, it was slick. no question. There were some slippery incidents for sure.
Yeah, and on the other end of Max on his team, of course, Checo, a disappointing qualifying and a disappointing race. He had contact, I think it was with signs. He was bouncing off the walls. Just a race that Checo really wants to forget after taking victory last year. A funny thing I noticed here during the broadcast is that they had James Vows, of
Our new
course,
boy.
our new boy, our guy, the Williams technical director, chief technical director. He's great. Obviously, was with Mercedes, and we were talking about how he does these really cool breakdowns on Williams Racing's social media, and how it's. I mean, first of all, he's British, so it sounds great, but it's just a really cool, 1-2 minute breakdown of why certain things happen in a race, why calls were made that maybe there was more to it than you'd initially see during the race. So they had him to break down some things that were happening mid race, and you know what? Greg, you said this earlier. I think Liberty Media might be fans of the pod.
They must be listening because we've been hyping this guy for a while. And yeah, it was kind of cool to have him. I think around lap 22 came on and had some comments about what was going to happen. And yeah, we can learn a lot from this guy. So that was a great inclusion. And then, Mark, I was thinking about you around, I think it was like lap 55 or mid 50s. We had a random appearance by a guy we haven't talked about or heard from in a long time. Your boy, Italian Jesus, Antonio
Did you?
Giovinazzi.
I totally forgot. We had Joe Giovinazzi, a little sighting. He's with
Beautiful
Ferrari.
man.
What's he up
reserve
to?
driver.
Is he the reserve driver?
I think he is a reserve driver there. We need to be fact checked on that, but he was definitely with the team there and looking just as good as always.
As always, I totally forgot about Antonio. Well, shout out to him. He was someone who we thought had a bright future in F1. I mean, that's how tough it is to not only get in F1 but to remain in F1. But yeah, we had to kind of wrap things up on Monaco. Verstappen cruises to that victory after Fernando makes the wrong call on the tire exchange. Ocon, P3, gets that podium. And I mean, he is, for me, the MVP of the weekend, given what he's working with.
I completely agree. And also kind of funny, I don't know if you noticed during the podium ceremony, but Fernando put a leg up onto first place, maybe foreshadowing that he's going to get that victory in the next few races that are coming up. Hopefully he can do it in his home country race in Barcelona. But I don't think it's going to be too long. As soon as Max slips up, period, the guy that's going to take advantage, I mean, there's no one driving like Fernando this year. So
no, he's driving like a bat out of hell. He's got a great car, and he's talking about competitive attitudes and minds. Max, Lewis, Fernando, they're all right there at the top. It's coming. We know the victory is coming. Spain's less than a week away now. And so I'm actually this is for sure 100% I can say with confidence the first time I'm excited for the Spanish Grand Prix. No offense to our friends at the Ultimate Paddock Pass, who all hail from the country of Spain, but Barcelona was a bit of a bore fest for the last few years.
You're not wrong. And also, I don't think I've been on since we did have that co-produced episode with the Ultimate Paddock Pass, but just wanted to say what a fantastic opportunity that was for us to link up with them, and what a great job they all did on the show.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I think we're going to do another episode with them at the end of the F1 Academy season. Hamilton and Russell, 4-5 for Mercedes, very respectable finishes. And that would put them, with their new side pods, and with George just driving into whatever he wants, manages to get 4 and 5. Good for them. And they are now, in the constructors at least, only 1 point behind Aston Martin. And that is because Lance did not finish the race. The old DNF. Very unfortunate. He was bad from the beginning. First lap, bumper cars going for gaps that were not even close to being there. Just kind of looked pretty amateurish, actually. Geez, here I am ragging our guy again, but I can't help it. Leclerc, he started 6th. He finished 6th. Gasly, nice P7. Sainz with a P8. He had a pretty unlucky race. He went for a gap pretty early on and drove right to the back of, was it Magnussen?
It was, I think.
It was Magnussen. So, yeah. That's who he was battling at that point. So, Carlos, disappointing race. Other than a great double stack that Ferrari had, just another bad weekend for them. Pretty bad strategy calls. You had at one point Ferrari telling Carlos to pit, and then he's about to pit, and them yelling at him to stay out. Very classic shades of Kimi Räikkönen back in the day with Ferrari. So they still can't put things together. They're falling back. They're fourth in the championship. Not great at all, especially after last season where they were first in the championship at this point in the season. Rounding out that top 10, you got Lando and Oscar, the McLarens on the points. Got to give a shout out to them for that.
Yeah, we've been shitting on them pretty heavily, so good to see them in the points, no question.
We certainly have. So good for them, and maybe Zach is going to stay around for a little bit longer. All right. Well, that was Monaco. It was a little brief because I'll be honest with you, folks. We're very busy with our lives right now, and it's like turning into warm weather, and then we're taking on too many activities, and here we are going as fast as we can to get through this recording, but we're still getting through it because we love you all so much, and we appreciate your support with the F1 Casuals. We're going to keep it going, no question. We're going to be at Montreal next year. That's what I've been telling everyone. Anyone who asked, the F1 Casuals will be in Montreal at the Grand Prix. Not this year because it's in like 3 weeks, maybe not even, maybe 2 weeks. No, it's in 3 weeks, but definitely next year.
100% will be there.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. But before we get into sprint to the finish line, it's been a minute, but let's do a quick podium prediction for Espana.
I'm going for it, Mark. I'm going for Fernando, P1.
You're damn right.
I'm doing it. Max is going to be P2. It's going to be some kind of driver error. I'm predicting he's been too ice cold. Something's got to give eventually. And why not when Fernando's this hot on his trail? So Max P2. And I think Sir Lewis is quietly going to slide into P3, probably have an excellent qualifying. I think Mercedes is kind of methodically and slowly going to claw their way back in and really put the pressure on Aston Martin for second place in the Constructors' Championship.
I totally agree with you. Actually, Lewis was close to snagging that P3 away from Ocon yesterday. He was, I think, finished only 3 seconds behind him. So, I mean, it's Lewis at the end of the day. He's always going to be there. We talked about the new upgrade with Mercedes. They actually have side pods now. The side pods do exist. I know we've talked about a lot how Mercedes went the completely opposite direction and had next to no side pods, which I was doing a little bit of reading about. Apparently in like preseason testing before the new regulations, the wind tunnel, it looked like they were going to blow the competition away. And if you remember, it's kind of become a meme in Drive to Survive, the first season with the new regulations. George Russell's like, that looks so fucking fast to the Mercedes. And it's like, haha, no, it's not. But it's probably because, what's that?
Oh, joke's on you, Georgie boy.
Yeah, joke's on you. And it was probably because that's what they were being told preseason testing, wind tunnel. It looks real fast. That wasn't the case in the real world. I didn't know that wind tunnels could lie. Mike could probably elaborate a bit more on that, but I guess they do. But yeah, they have some side pods now. I think Mercedes, like you said, they're going to start putting it together on the back end of the season. I think they're going to overtake Aston Martin next race. Unless Lance can do something.
Get it together, buddy.
Like, get it together.
And Mark, I don't know if you caught Toto's comments after the race because, when Checo went off, the crane that was there and quite quick to respond to any incidents that occurred, but the crane had picked up Lewis's vehicle and elevated over the paddock, I think, at one point, exposing the brand new floor that had been included in the side pod package. So I think he was a little bit concerned that everyone's going to be copying or taking notes from Mercedes and seeing that side of the vehicle. But
right, if
I don't know if anyone's going to be copying that livery anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know. They don't know if I didn't watch any of the practice, and I know that was in FP3 when Lewis crashed and they had to get that crane with the car out of there. I don't know if it was on the actual broadcast, but you'd think that if it was, teams would be like, don't show that. And if it isn't, then photographers would be prohibited to take that kind of shot. Kind of surprising considering how, I don't know how strict they are on people going and looking at other cars and taking pictures in the paddock and all that. But I mean, there's that old saying, and I don't play by these rules, but that old saying, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And I think that goes a long way in the sport of F1.
100%.
No question. So let me get into my podium prediction because I'm gonna go the same direction. There's no way I can't take Fernando Alonso, P1, Spain. He's gonna celebrate like it's 2005 in Barcelona, and it's gonna be a party. He's gonna take it. I think. I also think it's funny, like whenever you don't put the Red Bulls at the front, you're like, I have to come up with some catastrophic excuse for something. Like Max, like I don't know, gets in the wrong Uber and gets taken to the airport and kidnapped, and then he can't finish and win the race. I think something will happen. I think they are due, like not a driver error. I think a mechanical error, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think Max isn't going to finish the race. That's super bold, but whatever. I'm going to go with it, making up as we go along. That's what we're all about. So Fernando, Lewis, P2, and then I think Charles gets P3.
That is a spicy, wild podium. I'm here for it, Marky boy.
That is what I'm going to do. I missed podium predictions. I missed the spice, so I had to make it extra hot.
And we'll get Mikey's midweek for everybody too.
Yeah, we'll pop it on the socials. All right, Greg, before we get out of here, quick sprint to the finish line. We alluded to this earlier in the show. Aston Martin will be partnering with Honda in 2026. Honda will supply their full power unit, similar to the deal that they had with Red Bull before this year. And I mean, I think that's great news. I think the Mercedes engine is nothing wrong with it. I mean, for the last decade, it's been the best engine in F1. But Honda definitely had it figured out, at least with the Red Bull. And I think that's a great partnership going forward, especially when you want to distance yourself maybe from the other teams you're competing with. When you are that top team, you don't want to have a Ferrari engine or a Mercedes engine because you're beating them. And that's very cool for them. Like we said, Lawrence is a winner, and he is going to stop at nothing to get that Aston Martin team to the top.
I really like this partnership, and a little bit of a throwback for me, given that the timing is around Monaco. F1 had posted that clip of Senna's 1990 quali lap, and you notice on the steering wheel right away, the Honda logo right there. So that old McLaren that was an absolute beast was powered by Honda. They've been in the sport for so long, and yeah, I think combining distancing themselves from Mercedes and another top competitive team, I think it's the right move. I like it. And excited to see what kind of development they can come up with.
Very excited. Looks like Aston Martin is going to be a team that's here to stay and here to win future championships, we hope. Now, I talked about this on the last episode, and I kind of got this wrong. I thought Williams was doing a special golf livery for Monaco. Not the case. They are doing a special golf livery for the Japanese Grand Prix, the Qatar Grand Prix, and the Singapore Grand Prix. And they've given fans 4 options. I'm going to pop those up right now on the screen. If you're listening to this, sorry, apologies. Check out our socials or YouTube to see them, or just Google it. Pretty cool options. I like the one that's called like bolder than bold. I don't know when exactly the contest, so to speak, ends, but go vote. Go Google, Williams Golf Livery Vote, and you can let Williams know which one you want. I think you should go with bolder than bold, but, it's a free country.
For me, it's Heritage, I think, the 4th choice.
Oh, okay. I think that might have been my second favorite. So there's a couple cool ones. You got that the golf livery, the sky, kind of light blue, very cool. And then the light kind of papaya, which sort of is McLaren, but whatever. It's on a Williams livery. It's fine. It's going to look great, and that'll be towards the end of the year in those 3 Grand Prix. F1 Academy driver, Bianca Bustamante, who was the first Filipino driver to win a race in F1 Academy. Kind of cool here. She's been making the runs on the North American tour. She was on CTV Morning Live, which here in Canada is one of the bigger morning shows. She was on a bunch of different morning shows in the States. And her period E period R, the R&B star, she posted about her on her Instagram. So very cool to see that North America is embracing F1 Academy, and people that have a huge platform are embracing it as well. Um, Races still aren't being broadcasted, which is unfortunate, but at least we're seeing maybe a bit more traction in terms of people that aren't necessarily affiliated with F1 and the Liberty Media family still doing their part to bring F1 Academy to where it should be, here to stay, a permanent fixture, a permanent category. And another shout out to Bianca. She was actually replacing a driver in F4. She was at the Italian Championships racing for Prema. So very cool opportunity for her.
That's excellent. And I think the other side of that equation too is to get a female driver into Formula One. We know we've been talking about that for a long time, but hopefully we will see that day sooner than later. And yeah, it requires fan support, other athletes, musicians, people, celebrities to help elevate the profiles of these drivers. So we'll try to do our part, but we would encourage everyone else to do the same.
Exactly. And like for all you people who are like, oh, the women they can't take the G-force, it's like, shut up.
Have you seen how small some of these male drivers? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Nick DeVries is 108 pounds soaking wet, but like it's a numbers game, okay? There's such a massive pool of male drivers to pick from. This is the point about raising awareness and popularity. You have more female drivers, more young females getting interested in this sport. You have that bigger pool to choose from. I think it's only a matter of time until we see one in F1. I think within the next decade, we'll see. I think a few of the drivers on the grid right now, a few of the F1 drivers, they think by 2030 we'll see one. That'd be great. We'll see. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think with F1 Academy, we'll get a better idea of who's going to rise to the top there and make their way through the different categories up to F1. A new contract with Mercedes is almost finished for Lewis Hamilton. I know there was rumors that he was going to go to Ferrari. That was all bullshit. Like, are you kidding me? He was never going to go to Ferrari. So I would say expect probably before silly season a new contract to be announced. I don't know how long it's going to be. I'm expecting maybe like a 2-year deal.
I would say 2 sounds about right for him.
2 sounds about right. I don't think he's going to go to any other team. I think he'll retire as a Mercedes driver. It makes sense. It's where he's had the majority of his success, McLaren being the other championship, but he's not going back to McLaren, I'll tell you that much. It doesn't look like Imola is going to be replaced. That's really, it sucks. Realistically, it's really just side news to, the flooding that happened over there, and hoping everyone's as much as they could recovered at this point. But I think the F1 or Liberty Media was saying that the calendar is just too condensed, and there's not going to be a place to put that back on the calendar. I don't know if I just don't think there's going to be a replacement whatsoever, whether it's Imola or not. I think it'll just be 22 races or whatever it's going to be now instead of the 23.
Yeah, you can't invent extra weekends in that, as you say, very condensed schedule as is. So that's too bad. But yeah, we hope everyone in those affected regions in Italy are doing okay.
And lastly, our counterparts here in North America, IndyCar, had their biggest race of the year. It's another third of Motorsport's Triple Crown, the Indy 500. And Joseph Newgarden, who had what I thought was a McDonald's car, it actually was a Shell car, he won, passing Marcus Ericsson on the final lap. Marcus Ericsson, of course, former F1 driver, former Formula E driver, and won the Indy 500 last year. So very cool to see that. I watched the highlights. I know as F1 purists, Indy ovals are like not, the cool thing. But my God, those cars are going so fast. And a tire got shot into the crowd at one point. Luckily, it went over everyone and into the parking lot and hit a car. But nonstop action over there. Shout out to Newgarden. He's never won before. First time. Celebrated with the milk. Poured it all over his head. And good to see.
That's kind of a gross tradition. That's the one thing.
Disgusting.
What the fuck?
I forget how that started. There is a reason. I didn't look it up because it's gross and it should just be stopped. People are going to be like, no, it has a lot of meaning.
It's
Let us
so
know.
hot.
Yeah.
Milk was a bad choice.
Imagine, right? You're just pouring milk over your sweaty
I don't
suit
want
and
no.
nasty, nasty, nasty stuff. But whatever. Good for him. Big win. After you win the Indy 500, spoiled milk is the least of your problems or issues. You're just pumped.
Yes.
Yeah. So there you go. That is it, folks, for us this week. We'll be back after the Spanish Grand Prix. And I don't even know where I was going with that accent, but I just got excited because I was like, and after Fernando Alonso's first victory in
Yes, sir.
almost a decade, actually, I think pretty much a decade. You have to fact check me on that, but around there. But before we get out of here, you know the drill. You know what I got to say. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please hit that subscribe button, give us that 5-star rating, and leave us a review. Let us know. Do you think Lance is going to be replaced? Do you think Lawrence is going to find someone else? Does he have another son we don't know about? Who knows? Find out next time on F1 Mysteries. If you're watching on YouTube in living color, smash that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit that bell button so you always know when new content's coming out. We're breaking these episodes down into cool little shorts so you can always have something to see every day. And those little videos are also going on our other social channels on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook at F1 Casuals. Check us out. We're putting up memes and stuff too. It's a good time. You know what we're doing? We're trying to become the biggest F1 podcast in Canada and then the world. We're going to the Montreal Grand Prix next year. I don't care what anyone says. We're doing it, whether it's as media or fans or both. It's happening. But until next time, it's lights out.
See you on the grid.